I'm Alexa Lowe. As we follow the COVID-19 updates from Dr. Brian McGee, there are a couple new updates since we last saw you. Illinois is now operating at a stay-at-home order until the end of the day on Thursday, April 30th. There will be a virtual town hall meeting on Thursday, April 2nd at 4 p.m. Central Time. Registration for fall and summer classes opened Monday, March 30th, and 2 COVID-19 cases have been confirmed thus far in the Quincy region. The QU bookstore is offering free shipping return labels and is extending the non-return period without penalty to assist increased returns by mail. Families who are experiencing financial difficulties with their student account balances are encouraged to reach out to Christy Shelton as soon as possible. Lastly, QU's Health and Wellbeing Clinic will be offering counseling via telehealth for any student or employee who needs them, regardless of where they are living. More information on the updates can be found at qumedia.net. The shelter in place means most people are spending time in their home, dorm, or apartment. Some are working from home while others don't have much to do all day long. I talked to a couple students and asked what they've been doing to stay busy. Besides schoolwork, most don't have any obligations like a job or internship. Getting outside has been the most popular option as the weather here in Quincy has been nice the past couple days. I've seen students playing cornhole, taking a walk, and going for a run. Inside, students have kept themselves busy with board games, puzzles, and brain teasers. Check out the quarantine activity article on qmedia.net and let us know how you're keeping yourself busy.
Hello everyone, I'm Taylor King coming to you from the Student Living Center. So some students have been struggling with getting the rest of their belongings out of the dorms, so here's some ways that you can properly get yourself out of the dorms. So students have received an email regarding how to move out. You must sign up for a move-out appointment. Due to the social distancing, there's limited number of hourly appointments. For those of you who have already moved out, you can mail your keys back to Residence Life with the Quincy University address. When moving back, you can only have 2 helpers with you. For campus signage, bringing things back to campus, there are places that students and staff and the public are not allowed. Outside of the HFC, it directs the public to not enter the building, and the students on campus are only the ones allowed inside. But once inside, athletes aren't even allowed in their locker rooms either. For other signage is put around campus to keep those on and around campus safe and healthy.
Since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, much has changed. All non-essential business has been shut down. This does include high schools. I traveled to Hermitage High School to see how the school was coping with this pandemic and all of these changes. When I got there, I was met with a gloomy sight, an empty parking lot. When I went inside, much of the same. Empty classrooms and hallways filled with school supplies. I spoke with Hermitage High School Principal Chrissy Friedman on what steps are being taken during these trying times.
Hi, my name is Chrissy Friedman. I'm principal here at Hermitage R4 School, and in relation to the COVID crisis, we have closed school and provided instructional materials to students in packet form based on their demographic. Most students did not have access to internet. We are also still providing food and giving parents the option to pick it up at school or at different pickup locations. So that is how we're trying to meet the needs of our students.
Hermitage High School is just one of the 555 Missouri public, private, and charter schools to close down during this pandemic. After making my rounds around the property, one thing was for sure. This place looked more like a ghost town than a high school. Ghost town or not, Hermitage High School and many other Missouri high schools are refusing to let education take a back seat during this crisis. Alex Abishon, QUTV News, Hermitage.
I'm Shane Halsey. During these uncertain times, we're hopefully staying home as much as possible, which means road traffic isn't as crazy as usual. But as we gradually work our way back to normal, we'll return to our hustling, bustling lives, going out to eat, visiting family in other states, whatever it may be. With that increased travel comes, obviously, increased road traffic, which means increased need for road repairs and even new roads. This is where the census comes into play. The census determines funding for public services, which include education, health, transportation, etc. Quincy City Planner Chuck Bevelheimer says the city of Quincy competes with cities of a similar size for the funds generated by the census.
We compete with other cities that are under 50,000 in population for those funds. So through a block grant program that the federal government offers to the state, it gives us the opportunity to go after funding to support projects if we can prove that there's a direct need and can impact the population. So we, every year, write grants for either housing or for infrastructure needs and try to improve the local community by obtaining those funds to make public infrastructure improvements.
So how do these funds help QU students? Belvelheimer points to 18th Street in particular as an example.
That road to be a federal aid for urban route, that funds would be available through the federal government to the state, to the city, that we can then use to rehab, resurface, curb gutters, ADA accessibility, sidewalks, all the storm drainage issues are addressed, the sewer issues are addressed, so that helps us maintain that critical infrastructure.
So when your street gets paved or the storm drain near your house gets fixed, be thankful that you are counted in the census. If you live off campus in a house or apartment, you can go to my2020census.gov to be counted. If you live in the dorms, QU will include you in its census report. You can find this full story and more on QUmedia.net.
Hi, I'm Abigail Moore. In the midst of this pandemic, most people have forgotten about the census. Today, April 1st, is officially Census Day, which is a key day for the 2020 census. Throughout March, families across the nation were invited to complete their family census form, which can now be completed over the phone, online, or by mail. The U.S. Census Bureau uses this day to determine who is counted and where. When you respond to the census, you are able to tell the Census Bureau where you live as of April 1st, which is today, and include everyone who lives and sleeps in your home. The U.S. Census Bureau encourages everybody to respond by this day or as soon as you can, but like I said before, it's not a deadline, it's a checkpoint for the Census Bureau to know who has and who hasn't filled out their form. Between April 29th and May 1st, the Census Bureau will count people who are experiencing homelessness. A part of this process includes counting people in shelters, soup kitchens, mobile food vans, and on the streets. Illinois Congressman Darren LaHood understands how crucial it is for individuals and families to be counted in the U.S. Census because that determines how a district is represented in the federal government.
The census is a critical part of our democracy. It determines so much of what happens in our states, cities, and communities by how many people are there. And so getting people to participate means they're going to get better representation, they're going to get more resources. The founders put the provisions in there related to the census because they wanted to make sure we had an accurate count of people where they live at, so then we can direct resources and have representation that's appropriately distributed throughout the country.
He says that anybody living in the United States needs to be counted, whether they live in the U.S. or not. He said that the democracy is premised by people participating in the census, especially those in Illinois.
Illinois, over the last 30 years, has lost population. And part of that's due to people moving to warmer climates, people leaving Illinois because of a bad business climate. If people don't participate in the census, there could be real ramifications in Illinois because the congressional delegation is made up right now of 18 members of Congress. We are going to lose one seat because we've lost population. But if we lose too much population, we can lose 2 seats. So we would go from 18 members of Congress to 16 members of Congress. So what that means for the state of Illinois is you lose your political power in Washington, D.C., you lose the amount of people that represent you in Illinois, and that means you lose out on everything from housing, money that goes to housing in the state of Illinois, transportation systems and roadways, the amount of quotas that you get for police and fire departments in small communities. So that could affect Quincy, it could affect Jacksonville, Illinois, or Macomb.
Congressman LaHood is encouraging everybody to participate and fill out your census forms so you are able to reap the benefits of good representation in the White House.
Sports that play their regular seasons in the spring aren't the only ones that have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The QU football team is unable to hold spring practice. These practices are usually a valuable time for players and coaches to get back on the field after a long winter, scrimmage, and get their bodies and minds ready for the grind that is a college football season. But because of a certain virus, which need not be named, head coach Gary Bass and the rest of the team have to settle for team meetings on Zoom, social media, and workout challenges to stay connected with each other. I chatted with Coach Bass over the weekend about the virus and life in general. He says how he handled this situation comes down to one word: character.
My definition of character sounds as funny as it sounds. We define character as who you are when no one's watching. And right now, there's a lot of situations where everybody's at home doing their own thing, and either listening or not listening to what's going on. And for humanity's sake, people have got to understand that tough times require tough people. And in order to be that, you got to realize that things aren't always going to go the way you want them to go. They're going to be difficult, and it's all about doing it together, not trying to do it separate. I know people are just they're panicking because of these gates get closed, or this door gets closed, or this country's closed. Like, people are going to make decisions, but we have ultimately got to stick together as a human race. I think this more than anything else, we've got something trying to kill everyone equally, not just U.S. or anybody else. Like, they're killing everything. So for us to sit back, reflect, be smart, do what we're supposed to do consistently over and over again, and I think everything will be okay. But love each other, care for each other, and be as humble and helpful as humanly possible in these times for everybody.
Never in most of our lifetimes have we encountered anything like this pandemic, but we can and will get through this. But the only way we can come out on the other side better than before is if we stick together. We may not be able to be physically together with everyone we want to be with, but that doesn't mean we can't unite for a common goal: kicking the you-know-what out of the coronavirus. Reporting from Wentzville, Missouri, Shane Holsey, QUTV News.
In other news, the Quincy University men's and women's top 8 tennis teams traveled to Orlando, Florida for spring break a few weeks ago. I was also traveling with them as a senior member of the women's tennis team. That was around the time that COVID-19 was just being released and things were really uncertain at that time. The NBA, the NHL, D1 Sports, and even other teams in our conference were announced that they were done for the season, so we could only assume that we were done as well. So our teams traveled down that Monday, and then we were to come back on that Friday. I talked to my team Thursday night about what was going on, and they obviously knew as well. They knew about the closings around us, but I talked to them about tomorrow, which was Friday, possibly being our last match. It really set in for the seniors, me and another girl on the team who were there, to think about that. Tomorrow could possibly have been our last match, but we went into it thinking that we've put in a lot of years of effort and work and time into this team. So I kind of took everything in. I took in the stretches, the warm-up, the few points that we would play and practice before our actual match time. We went in, I killed it. Personally, the team killed it. I won my doubles match, and my senior partner and I won our doubles matches. So at the end, our coaches made kind of a small senior day for us. The traditional senior day on the tennis team is kind of a dinner, snacks, kind of lunch, dinner, whatever, and then a few speeches, and the coaches would do something and the team would do something. So this was a really, really small version of that, which that's totally okay, but it was not what I was expecting at all. But it indeed was our last match, so now I was able to come out and say that I'm an alumni now. It definitely wasn't the way I thought it would end. The GLVC is promising an extra year of eligibility for those seniors who lost that year, but for those who have other plans, it's not it's a nice gesture, but it's not going to make up for what they lost. So especially me with other post-graduation plans.
In March, households across the country will be invited to participate in the 2020 census. It only takes 5 minutes, and your responses help guide the future of our communities.
Helping fund public services like free and reduced lunches in the schools, hospitals and healthcare,
fire and emergency response services, and hundreds of other programs.
Help shape the future of Quincy and be counted.
Alan Wilson, also known as BJ, is a junior offensive lineman for the Hawks football team. He spoke about his tasty new hobby, cake pops. BJ has been making a name for himself around campus selling cake pops. The talent of baking came natural as it was already in the family.
So my dad has been baking cakes and cupcakes and all that stuff and selling them since probably as long as I've been alive, so like 20 years. He might have been doing it even longer than that. I'm not entirely sure. So that's what got me interested in baking in general.
BJ started out making a different sweet snack.
In fact, you know what it was? It was chocolate covered strawberries. That's what I started out doing. I sold those in high school. And then I was like, okay, well, what about cake pops? It's pretty much similar. It's something dipped in chocolate. So one thing led to that. That's where we are now.
In addition to the cake pops and the chocolate covered strawberries, Wilson also does chocolate covered pretzels, marshmallows, cakes, and cupcakes. As the coronavirus pandemic continues, he talked about how his business has been impacted.
Last year, it was really good. Like every time I was consistently making like 24 a week and then selling them out within a week. So it was really good. This year, obviously, we haven't been at school at all. So I made, I think 35 or something in my first batch, and I sold all of those. And I did give a few away for cheaper prices when spring break was approaching because I didn't want to have to hold on to them for that long. So it's been decent, but obviously I'm not doing anything now. I bought a bunch of material to make cake pops, and I don't have any one to sell them to, so I just kind of sitting on cake pop material right now.
Wilson hopes that once the virus dies down, their business will be back as usual. Reported from St. Louis, Missouri, Reggie Austin, QUTV News.
Thanks so much for watching QUTV News this week. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Stay safe and stay healthy.